The first time my best friend's mom looked at me and said, "You're not the boy I remember," I realized coming back home was going to change more than I thought. My name is Tyler. I am 24, and after 4 years away at college in Seattle, I am back in the small town in Oregon where I grew up. It is one of those towns where nothing ever really changes. Same gas station with the flickering sign, same grocery store with the squeaky carts, same Main Street diner with the red booths, and the old man who sits at the counter every morning with black coffee. I just landed a junior developer job at a small software company outside town. It is not big tech or anything like that, but it is steady work, and it means I can afford my own one-bedroom apartment above a nail salon on Maple Street. The place is small. Creaky floors, thin walls, and a window that looks out over the alley. I have a mattress on the floor, a second-hand couch, and a laptop on a folding table. It is not much, but it is mine. My best friend Jake never left. We grew up next door to each other, spent summers building forts in the woods and winters playing video games until his mom made us go to bed. After high school, I went off to Seattle. He stayed and got a job at his uncle's auto shop. We texted here and there while I was gone. Memes, game updates, a "you alive?" every couple of weeks. Not deep, but not nothing. When I told him I was moving back, he said, "Dude, finally. Get over here as soon as you're settled. Mom's gonna lose it when she sees you." So on my first real Saturday back, with most of my boxes still unopened and my fridge holding nothing but leftover pizza and half a bottle of orange juice, I decided to go see him. Jake lives in the same house he always did, a light blue single-story at the end of Birch Lane. I parked on the street and just sat there for a second, looking at it. The front porch was the same, with the 2 old chairs and the potted plants his mom loved. The big maple tree still stretched over the yard, leaves thick and green in the late June air. I stepped out of the car and walked up the cracked concrete path. The air smelled like fresh-cut grass and someone grilling a few blocks away. Kids were riding bikes down the street, their voices faint and familiar. It felt like stepping into a photo from my own childhood. There was still a fake rock in the flower bed by the porch, the one that hid the spare key. I bent down, lifted it, and sure enough, the key was there. For a second, I just smiled to myself. Some things really did not change. I slipped the key in the lock, opened the door, and called out, "Jake, it's Tyler." The house was quiet. No TV blaring, no clatter from the kitchen. Just the hum of the fridge and the faint tick of the old clock in the hallway. I shut the door behind me and stepped into the living room. The same brown couch. The same coffee table with a scratch from when we had dropped a controller on it. A few new framed photos on the wall, mostly of Jake with grease on his hands posing next to cars he had helped fix. "Jake?" I called again, a little louder. "You home?" Quote. A voice answered from the hallway, but it was not his. "Tyler?" I turned toward the sound. She stepped out from the shadow near the base of the stairs, and for a second, my brain did not catch up. It was his mom, Madison. She used to be Mrs. Harper when we were kids. Back then, she was the one in oversized t-shirts and messy ponytails, juggling 2 jobs and a house full of noise. I remembered her rushing out the door with a travel mug in one hand and her car keys in the other, telling us not to burn the place down while she was at work. Now she stood there in the hallway, and she did not look like the tired mom I remembered. Her dark brown hair fell loose around her shoulders, a few soft waves catching the light from the window. She wore fitted jeans and a simple black tank top with a light cardigan over it. Nothing fancy, but it fit her in a way that made me notice. There was a calmness about her, a quiet confidence I did not remember seeing before. Her eyes, a warm hazel, ran over me. Not in a quick, polite way, but slowly, like she was taking me in. "Wow," she said, a small smile curving on her lips. "Tyler, you really grew up." I laughed, trying to shake off the sudden knot in my chest. "Yeah, that happens when they let you leave town for a few years." She took a few steps closer. I caught a hint of her perfume in the air, something soft and clean, like vanilla and soap. "You're not the boy I remember," she said, her head tilted a little. "Not at all." I swallowed. There was something in the way she said it that made my skin feel too tight. Not judgment, not disapproval, just awareness. Well, you're not exactly how I remember either, I said before I could stop myself. Her eyebrows lifted, and that small smile turned into a grin. I will take that as a compliment. It is, I said. We stood there for a second, the silence stretching just a little too long, until I cleared my throat. Is Jake here? I asked. He told me to swing by. She shook her head. He had to run to the shop. One of the guys called in sick. He said he might be a while. She glanced past me, like she could see my car through the door. He assumed you would sleep in, like always. I used to, I said. The real world kind of killed that habit. She laughed softly. It has a way of doing that. She nodded toward the kitchen. You came all this way. You might as well come in and have some coffee. Unless you have somewhere else to be. I did not. My apartment was just boxes and silence. The idea of sitting in this house, with its familiar walls and this version of Madison I had not met before, felt strange, but better than going back to that empty folding table. Coffee sounds good, I said. Come on then, she said, turning toward the kitchen. I just made a fresh pot. I followed her. The kitchen looked mostly the same. Same wooden cabinets. Same tile counters. The fridge had new magnets on it, mostly from random car shows, and a small, proud of my mechanic magnet, with Jake's picture stuck under it. There was a new plant by the window, its leaves stretching toward the light. Take a seat, she said, motioning to the stool at the island. Do you still take it with cream and sugar? For a moment I blinked. You remember that? She gave a little shrug as she reached for mugs. I remember more than you think. My chest tightened again, but I sat down, keeping my hands folded on the counter so she would not see they were a little unsteady. She poured coffee into 2 mugs, then grabbed the cream and sugar from the counter. As she slid my mug toward me, her fingers brushed mine. The contact was brief, but my pulse jumped anyway. I wrapped my hand around the mug to steady myself. So? She said, leaning against the counter across from me with her own mug. Tell me about Seattle. 4 years is a long time to be away. I took a sip of the coffee. It was strong, just the way I liked it. Busy, I said at first. Loud. Always raining. She smiled. Sounds about right. It was good, I added. I learned a lot, got lost a lot. Wrote way too much code and ate way too much cheap takeout. I am still not sure how I passed my algorithms class. She laughed, the sound soft and low. I always knew you would land on your feet. You were the kid who fixed our Wi-Fi when you were 12. Quote. I just unplugged the router, I said. Yes, she said, but you were the only one who thought to try. Her eyes lingered on me again, and this time I could not pretend I did not notice. There was pride there, sure, like you would expect from someone who had watched you grow up. But there was something else, something that made the air between us feel thicker. And no one special in Seattle? She asked, taking a sip of her coffee. No girlfriend keeping you up there? I shook my head. No, a couple of short things. Nothing that stuck. I was married to my laptop most of the time. She said, the corner of her mouth lifting. Their loss. I did not know what to say to that, so I looked down at my coffee. My ears felt hot. What about you? I asked, glancing back up. How have you been? The question hung there for a second. She looked down into her mug, her thumb running along the handle. Busy, she said, working at the clinic. Trying to keep Jake from eating nothing but fast food. Learning how to do things around the house that your old Mr. Harper used to swear only he could do. She smiled, but there was a trace of something behind it. Tiredness, maybe a little loneliness. Being on my own has been different, she added. Hard sometimes, good sometimes. I am still figuring it out. I remembered when her husband left. I had already been in Seattle by then, but Jake had called me late one night, voice low, telling me his dad had packed a bag and moved out. He had laughed it off at the time, said it was for the best, but I could hear the crack in his voice. You seem like you handled it, I said. This place still looks like home. Her eyes flicked around the kitchen, then back to me. Home is a work in progress, she said. But I am trying. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the faint buzz of the fridge and a song playing on the radio in the living room. Something old and slow. She set her mug down and tilted her head at me again. "I meant what I said," she said quietly. "You are not the boy I remember." My heart thudded a little harder. "Is that a good thing?" I asked. Her gaze did not waver. "It is a very good thing," she said. The way she looked at me when she said it made me feel like the kitchen had gotten smaller, like the walls had moved in just a little. Before I could figure out what to say next, my phone buzzed on the counter. I glanced at it. A text from Jake. "Be there in 20. Don't let Mom talk your ear off." I smiled, despite the knot in my chest. "She said you would be here a while," I said, sliding my phone back into my pocket. "He is on his way." "Good," she said, but there was a flicker in her eyes I almost missed, like part of her had enjoyed the quiet as much as I had. She picked her mug back up, her fingers wrapping around the handle. "Then we have about 20 minutes, she said, her voice soft but clear. "Plenty of time for me to get to know the man you turned into." When she said, "Plenty of time for me to get to know the man you turned into," it hit harder than I wanted to admit. I tried to play it cool and took another sip of coffee, but my hand was not as steady as I wished. The mug felt warm in my palm, and the whole kitchen felt warmer too. Madison stayed where she was, leaning on the counter across from me, her eyes on my face like she was really studying me. "So," she said, her tone light but her gaze sharp. "Tell me, are you happy you came back?" The question caught me off guard. People usually asked about my job, my apartment, the usual stuff. No one asked if I was happy. I thought for a second, fingers tapping the side of the mug. "I do not know yet," I said honestly. Seattle was busy, loud, a lot of people, a lot of noise. But there was always something happening. Here, everything is familiar. It feels good and strange at the same time. Like I pressed pause and then hit play again 4 years later. She nodded slowly. "That makes sense. When you stay, you do not notice the changes as much. When you leave and come back, you see everything with new eyes." "You included," I said before my brain could stop my mouth. Her lips curved, and she looked down for a moment like she was hiding a smile. When she looked back up, there was a softness in her eyes that tugged at something in me. "And what do those new eyes see?" she asked, voice quiet now. I swallowed, my throat dry. The smart move would have been to joke it off, say something safe. But I kept thinking about what she had said earlier. "You are not the boy I remember." "You seem lighter," I said. "Not like life suddenly got easy, but like you are more you. When we were kids, you were always rushing. Work, errands, school meetings. Now you feel more settled, stronger. I do not know. It is hard to explain." She held my gaze, not blinking. "That is a kind way to put it," she said. "There were years I did not feel strong at all. After your Mr. Harper left, I thought I might fall apart. I held it together for Jake, but it was a mess inside these walls. I thought about the closed blinds I had noticed on video calls with Jake when I was in college, the short, tired hellos from Madison in the background. I had not let myself think too hard about what it meant. "What changed?" I asked. She shrugged one shoulder, eyes drifting to the window over the sink and the tree outside. "Time. Therapy. Friends insisting I get out of the house. Learning how to fix things myself. Realizing I did not need someone else to tell me who I was." She paused, then looked at me again, and realizing I was allowed to want more from life than just getting through the day. The last line sat between us. Want more from life. It echoed something inside me. Those nights in Seattle when I had walked alone through the city streets, wondering if anyone would ever really see me. "I like who you turned into," I said quietly. The clock in the hall ticked. A car passed outside. Her eyes softened in a way that made my chest feel tight. "You know," she said, "I used to worry about you." "Me?" I blinked. "Why?" "You were always thoughtful," she said, quiet, but not in a checked-out way. "You were watching everything. People like that can get lost if no one teaches them how to be seen. I used to watch you and think, I hope he finds people who really notice him." I felt that line like a hit straight to the center of my chest. For a second, I did not trust myself to speak. "Well," I said, my voice a little rough, At least one person noticed. Quote, "Her eyes did not leave mine. At least one," she said. The air felt thicker now, not heavy in a bad way, but charged, like the moment right before a summer storm. I was aware of everything. The way she held her mug in both hands, the soft line of her jaw, the faint, tired circles under her eyes that somehow made her look more real, not less. My phone vibrated again. Another text from Jake, running late. Maybe closer to an hour. Sorry, dude. I stared at the screen, then set it face down on the counter. Madison watched me, head tilted. "He is taking his time," she said. "Yeah," I answered. "Guess the shop is busy." "You do not have to wait," she said. "I know you have your own place now, your own life." The way she said it made it sound like leaving would be the responsible choice, the safe choice. For a second, I almost stood up. But then I looked at her, at the way her shoulders were a little too square, like she was braced for me to go. At the lonely half-smiles she gave when she talked about fixing things alone, at the way her eyes had warmed when she said someone finally saw me. "I am not in a rush," I said. "If you are not kicking me out, I am good." Something in her posture eased, her shoulders dropped a little, and the corner of her mouth lifted. "Then stay," she said. "I could use the company." She moved around the kitchen, rinsing a few dishes that were in the sink. I watched her, the way she moved now that she thought I was not paying full attention. There was a quiet grace in how she reached for things, how she hummed under her breath to the song playing on the radio. "Do you need help with anything?" I asked. She glanced over her shoulder. "If you really want to earn your coffee, you could grab that stool and change the bulb in that fixture. It has been flickering for weeks." I grinned and stood up. "Now that sounds more like a fair trade." She dragged the stool over, and I climbed up. As I unscrewed the glass cover, I felt her eyes on me for a moment, then heard her move away. Opening a drawer, she handed me a new bulb, our fingers brushing again. The touch was small, but it sent the same jolt up my arm. "Seattle did you good," she said lightly. "You got taller." "I do not think height works like that," I joked, but my voice had a nervous edge. "Then maybe I just never noticed before," she said. I replaced the bulb and stepped down. The kitchen light glowed steady when I flipped the switch. She looked up at it, then at me. "Look at that," she said. "Already fixing things again." I shrugged, wiping my hands on my jeans. Old habits. We moved to the living room after that. She sat at one end of the couch, I took the other. Not too close, not far. The TV was off. The afternoon light came through the window, soft and warm. "Do you ever regret staying?" I asked suddenly. She looked surprised. "In this town?" "Yeah," I said. "Jake always acted like he was fine staying. But for you. Did you ever want to leave?" She thought for a moment, eyes drifting to the family photos on the wall. Jake at 6 with missing teeth. Jake at 16 in a football jersey. Her and Jake at some lake, smiling at the camera with the sun behind them. "There were days I wished I could pack a bag and disappear," she said. "Start over somewhere no one knew me as the woman who got left. But then I would look at Jake, or at this house, and think, maybe I can build something right here. Maybe I can be more than what happened to me." She looked back at me. "What about you? Do you regret leaving?" I shook my head. "No, I needed to go, to see something else. To get out from under the weight of everyone remembering me as that quiet kid next door. But I realized something in Seattle." "What is that?" she asked. "That no matter where you go," I said, "it does not mean much if no one actually sees you there." Our eyes met, and there it was again, that silent understanding, that feeling like she had been reading the same book I had, just in a different chapter. "You know," she said, voice soft, "for what it is worth, I see you now. Not just as Jake's friend, not just as the kid who used to track mud into my kitchen, as you." My heart did that jump again, the one I kept pretending was just surprise. "Thank you," I said, and the words felt too small for what they meant. The sound of a truck pulling into the driveway cut through the moment. We both turned toward the front window. Jake's old pickup rolled to a stop. Madison let out a small breath and set her mug down. "Looks like our 20 minutes turned into an hour," she said with a faint smile. Guess he got busy, I said, standing up. Guess we did too, she answered. I was not sure what she meant by that, but the way she said it made me think she did. Jake burst through the door a moment later, loud and full of energy like always, calling my name and talking about some car that had come into the shop. The air shifted back to something familiar. Easy, safe, but as we moved into the evening, eating dinner and playing old games like we used to, I caught Madison's eyes on me more than once. Not long, not obvious, but enough. Each time, I felt that same quiet pull in my chest. I had come back to this town thinking I knew exactly who everyone was. My best friend. His house. His mom. But sitting there in the glow of the kitchen light I had just fixed, with Madison's words still in my head, I knew one thing for sure. She did not see me as a boy anymore. And I was starting to realize I could not see her as just my best friend's mom either. After that day in the kitchen, nothing felt simple anymore. I tried to tell myself I was overthinking it. That Madison's words were just a kind compliment. That the looks I felt from across the room were just my imagination. I threw myself into my new job, showed up early, stayed late, lost myself in lines of code and bug reports. But every time I drove past Birch Lane, my eyes would pull toward the light blue house at the end, toward the maple tree in the porch where I had spent half my childhood, toward the window I knew looked into the kitchen where she had told me she saw me as more than the boy she remembered. I stayed away for a few days. Jake texted a couple of times asking when I was coming over again, but I dodged it with excuses about work or being tired. I was not ready to walk back into that house and pretend nothing had shifted. On Thursday afternoon, I was in my apartment, eating cold pizza straight from the box, when my phone buzzed. Jake, dude, emergency. I frowned and replied. Me. What happened? Jake, relax. Not that kind of emergency. Mom is trying to move the old bookcase by herself. She will not wait for me. If it falls on her, you are the one who left her alone. I could picture him at the shop, grease on his hands, laughing as he typed. Still, the thought of Madison trying to drag heavy furniture around made my chest tighten. Me, I am on my way. Jake, knew I could count on you, hero. 15 minutes later, I was back on Birch Lane. My heart did its now familiar jump when I pulled up in front of the house. The curtains in the living room were open. I could see the edge of that old bookcase against the wall. I knocked once out of habit, then let myself in. Madison, I called. You trying to start a fight with gravity without backup. In here, her voice answered from the living room. I stepped in and stopped. The bookcase was already halfway out from the wall. Madison stood beside it, one hand on her lower back, the other braced against the wood. She wore black leggings and an oversized gray sweatshirt that dipped off one shoulder. Her hair was twisted up, a few strands loose around her face. She looked a little flushed, a little annoyed, and very real. I swear this thing gained weight while no one was looking, she said. I set my keys down and crossed the room. You know you could have waited like 20 minutes for Jake. Her eyes flicked to mine, and that small smile I was starting to recognize tugged at her lips. I did not feel like waiting, she said, and I did call for help, just not him. The words sank in a little deeper than they probably should have. Where do you want it? I asked, nodding at the bookcase. Other wall, she said, pointing. I want to open this space up a bit. Make it less like a storage room and more like a place I actually live in. We moved the thing together, her guiding, me lifting most of the weight. At one point, my hand brushed her hip as we turned the corner. The contact was brief, but it sent a warm line up my arm. Sorry, I muttered. It is fine, she said, not pulling away. I trust you not to drop me or the furniture. We got the bookcase into place. I stepped back, hands on my hips, catching my breath. It was not a huge room, but the new layout did make it feel more open. You were right, I said. It looks better. She tilted her head, taking it in. I like it, she said. Feels lighter. Her eyes slid to me. Thank you for coming. Jake guilt-tripped me, I joked. Said if a bookcase fell on you, it was my fault. She laughed, shaking her head. That sounds like him. We stood there, the new empty space between us and the couch. The afternoon light came in through the windows, soft and warm. Dust motes floated in the air, turning slowly. "Do you have to run?" she asked. "Or can you stay for a bit? I made too much coffee. Again." I thought of my apartment. The quiet. The half-eaten pizza. The way the walls seemed to press in when the sun started to go down. "I can stay," I said. We moved to the kitchen. She poured coffee, then grabbed a plate of banana bread from the counter. "Baked this yesterday," she said. "Therapy in loaf form." I took a slice. "Smells good." We sat at the table, facing each other. The radio was on low, some acoustic song humming in the background. "How has work been?" she asked. "Busy," I said. "Good busy. I like what I am doing." It is just strange to spend 8 hours looking at a screen and then go home to more screens. "You will find a balance," she said. "You always were good at adjusting." I shrugged. "I am trying." We ate and drank in easy silence for a minute. Then she set her mug down and looked at me in that way she did now, like she was about to say something real. "How have you been?" she asked quietly. "Not just work. You." No one had asked me that in a long time. I exhaled. "Up and down," I said. "Some days I feel glad I am back. It is nice to see familiar faces. Other days, I wonder if I came back because it was safe, not because it was right. It is like part of me is still waiting for something to start." She nodded slowly. "I know that feeling." "Do you?" I asked. She picked at a crumb on her plate. "After the divorce, once the shock settled, I kept waiting," she said, "for things to feel normal. For someone to show up and fill the empty space. For life to tell me, okay, now you move forward." She lifted her eyes to mine. "It took me a long time to realize no one was coming to do that for me," she said. "I had to start it myself." "Did you?" I asked. Her lips curved, but it was a small, bittersweet smile. "I am trying," she said. "Some days I feel like I am doing okay. I fix something in the house. I make a new recipe. I sit on the porch and enjoy the quiet. Other days I feel like I am walking through a life that is not quite mine yet." She paused, her fingers tracing the rim of her mug. "These last couple of weeks, though," she said, her voice softer, "I have felt more like myself than I have in a long time." My chest tightened. "Because of Jake," I said, though we both knew that was not all of it. "Because of you," she said, not looking away. The words landed between us, heavy and gentle at the same time. I swallowed. "Madison?" "I know," she said quickly. "I know how this sounds. You are his best friend. You are much younger. People in this town would have a field day if they even guessed what I am saying right now." She shook her head, a humorless laugh escaping. "But I promised myself I would be honest in my own house," she went on. "At least here, at least with myself." She took a breath. "When you walked through that door the first day," she said, "I saw the boy I remembered, and the man you turned into at the same time. It caught me off guard. You were always kind. You always noticed the small things. Now you carry yourself different. Like you finally know you belong in your own skin." She glanced down, then back up. "And somewhere in all that," she said, "I stopped seeing you as just the kid next door." The room felt smaller. The space between our chairs felt charged. I could have pretended I did not understand. I could have laughed it off, called it a crush, a phase, anything to make it lighter. But something about the way her voice shook on that last line made me drop the act. "I stopped seeing you as just my best friend's mom," I said, my voice low. "I do not know when it happened. In the kitchen with the coffee. With the bookcase. With the way you talk about rebuilding your life. You are not just someone's mom in my head anymore. You are you." She closed her eyes for a second, like she needed to steady herself. When she opened them, they were bright and wet, but she was smiling. "Thank you for saying that," she whispered. We sat there with the truth hanging between us. No jokes. No quick escape. "This is complicated," I said. "You know that." "Very," she agreed. "Jake, This town, the age difference. The fact that I used to cut the crusts off your sandwiches. That pulled a small laugh from both of us, the tension easing for a heartbeat. I do not want to hurt him, I said. He is like a brother to me. The last thing I would ever want is for him to feel betrayed. Quote, "Me either," she said. "He is my son. I would do anything for him." If he knew we were even having this conversation, it would change everything for him. "So what do we do?" I asked. She thought for a long moment, staring at the pattern in the table. When she spoke, her voice was steady. "We do not rush," she said. "We do not hide from ourselves. But we do not let this turn into something secret and ugly. If this is real, it will still be real when we have had time to think. And if it is not," I asked, "then we will be glad we did not blow up your friendship and my family over a feeling that passed," she said. I nodded slowly. It made sense. It also hurt more than I wanted to admit. "So space," I said, again. "Some," she said, "not forever. I am not asking you to vanish. I do not think I could handle that, now that you are back. But maybe not as many late nights talking alone in the kitchen while my son is gone." There was humor in her tone, but also truth. "I can live with that," I said. She reached across the table then, not all the way, just far enough that her fingers brushed the back of my hand. The touch was light, but it sent warmth straight up my arm. "For what it is worth," she said, "I am glad you came back to this town." I turned my hand so our fingers could rest together for a second. We stayed like that, palms barely touching, until the sound of a truck pulled into the driveway again. We let go at the same time. Jake burst in, complaining about a stripped bolt on some engine, and the air shifted back to friendly noise. We listened, laughed, moved around the kitchen like nothing had happened. But that night, back in my apartment, lying on my mattress in the dark, I could still feel the ghost of her fingers on my hand. I stared at the ceiling, my heart pounding, and realized something I had been trying not to name. This was not going away. No matter how much space we tried to put between us, something had already started. And sooner or later, we were going to have to decide what to do with it. Space sounded like a good plan in my head. Living it was harder. For the next week or so, I only went to Jake's house when I knew he would be there. Group hangouts, games in the living room, quick dinners where I made sure I sat on the side of the table that did not give me a straight view of the kitchen. On the surface, nothing was different. Jake and I joked like we always had. We argued about which game was better. We made fun of the same old neighbors. Madison moved around the house like she always did. She set plates down in front of us, asked about our days, teased Jake about his dirty hands. But under it, everything was different. Sometimes I could feel her eyes on me when she thought I was not looking. Just a second too long as she passed me a bowl. A soft smile when I made a joke that landed. A quiet warmth when our hands brushed over the back of the couch. Each time, my chest tightened. Each time, I reminded myself of what we had said. Do not rush. Do not hide from ourselves. Do not make this ugly. One Friday night, I was in my apartment, watching some old movie on my laptop without really seeing it, when my phone buzzed. "Madison, you busy?" My heart jumped. I stared at the text for a moment, then replied. "Me? Not really. Why?" "Madison power just went out on Birch Lane. Jake is stuck at the shop in the next town over. He says the whole block there is dark too. I cannot get the breaker to stay on. I know it is late, but if you are not doing anything, could you take a look? If not, I will be fine. Just asking." I glanced at the time. 9:17 p.m. Outside my window, the town looked dim. I could see the traffic lights down the street still working, but a few blocks over, it was darker than usual. I did not think long. Me, I will be there in 10. The night air was cool as I drove, my headlights cutting through the quiet streets. When I turned onto Birch Lane, the houses were mostly dark, a few candles glowing in windows. Madison's house had one small light on the porch and nothing else. She opened the door before I could knock. The only light behind her came from a flashlight on the table, throwing soft shadows over her face. "Hey," she said, "sorry to drag you out." "It is okay," I said. "Where is the breaker?" "In the basement," she said. "I tried, but it keeps tripping." I followed her through the dim hallway, down the narrow stairs. The basement smelled like dust and old paint. I found the breaker box on the wall, ran my fingers along the switches, flipped the main, and listened. For a second, the lights upstairs flickered on. Then there was a sharp click, and everything went dark again. "Something is overloading it," I said. "Probably the storm outside town messing with the line. We can try one more time, but I think you are stuck with candles for a bit." "That is fine," she said behind me. I have had worse nights. We went back upstairs. The house glowed faintly with candlelight now, a few on the kitchen counter, one on the coffee table, one by the sink. The soft light made everything feel closer, warmer. Jake's truck was nowhere in sight. The house was all quiet, except for the distant rumble of thunder. "Do you need anything else fixed while I am here?" I asked, half joking. She smiled, but it was small and tired. "Not unless you can wire my nerves differently," she said. "I always get a little on edge when it is just me in the dark." "You are not just you tonight," I said. "I am here." Her eyes met mine in the candlelight, and for a moment neither of us looked away. "Do you want to stay until the power comes back?" she asked. "I can make tea on the gas stove. It might beat sitting alone in your apartment staring at a dead laptop." "Yeah," I said. "I would like that." She moved around the kitchen, lighting another candle, filling a pot with water. The match flared bright for a second, then dropped into the sink. The gas flame flickered blue under the pot. The house hummed with quiet sounds. Water starting to simmer. The wind brushing against the windows. We sat at the table side by side this time, not across from each other. The candle between us flickered, casting a soft gold light on her face. The shadows softened the lines near her eyes, but did not erase them. They made her look even more like herself. "Thank you for coming," she said, wrapping her hands around her mug when the tea was done. "I know we said space. I just did not want to be alone with my thoughts tonight." I stared into my tea. The steam curled up in front of my face. "I have been alone with my thoughts all week," I said. "It did not help much." She huffed a quiet laugh. "Same." We sat there, the quiet stretching, but not in a bad way. "How have you been?" she asked. "Honestly." "Restless," I said. "Work is good. My job is fine, but every time I pass this street, I feel like I am walking around something I am not allowed to touch." She nodded slowly. "I feel like I am living around it," she said. "Like it is sitting in my kitchen and my living room, and I am pretending it is just another chair." We both smiled at that, small and sad at the same time. "This week, I tried to imagine you never coming back," she admitted, staring at the candle. "Not just to this house, but to this town. I thought maybe that would make it easier, but the thought made me feel sick." My chest tightened. "I could not stop thinking about you either," I said. I kept telling myself it was wrong, that I needed to shut it down, that it would be easier if I went somewhere else. But then I thought about all the nights you fixed things by yourself, all the mornings you woke up alone and just kept going. And I realized I do not want to run away from being one of the people who shows up for you. She looked at me then, really looked. Her eyes were wet in the candlelight. "Tyler," she said quietly, "this is not some teenage crush for me. I hope you know that. I fought it. I told myself I was lonely, that you were just kind, that I was reading into things because it felt good to be seen, but it is more than that." I swallowed. My heart was pounding, but the words came anyway. "It is more than that for me, too," I said. "I have had crushes. I have had flings. This does not feel like that. It feels like someone turned the lights on in a part of my life I did not know was dark." Quote, "We let the words sit there. What about Jake?" she said at last. "We cannot pretend he does not exist. He trusts you. He trusts me. I cannot be the reason he loses that." "I thought about him more than anything," I said. "And this might sound strange, but that is part of why I think we cannot treat this like something dirty. If we do this, I do not want to sneak around. I do not want to hide in corners. I want to go slow, be sure, and when it is real and steady, tell him the truth. Not as some scandal, but as something we chose carefully." She stared at me like she was seeing a version of me she had hoped was there. "You really mean that?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "We can keep things gentle for now. No rushing, no lying, just being honest with each other. If, down the line, It still feels like this. Then, we sit him down and take what comes. If it does not feel like this anymore, we still did it right. She leaned back, her shoulders dropping, like a pressure inside her had released. "You are not the boy I remember," she said again, but this time there was pride in her voice. "You are better." I felt my face heat, but I did not look away. "And you are not just my best friend's mom," I said. "You are Madison. You are strong. You are kind. You are beautiful. And I care about you more than makes sense on paper." Her breath hitched a little at that last line. She blinked, then gave a small, real smile. "Would it be crazy," she asked, "if I asked to hold your hand?" My heart thudded harder, but my answer was steady. "No," I said. "I have been wanting to do that for a long time." Slowly, like we were both still giving ourselves a chance to pull back, she reached across the small space between us. I met her halfway. Her fingers slid into mine, warm and sure. It was such a simple thing, but it felt huge. We sat there, hands joined on the table, the candle flickering beside us. Neither of us rushed. Neither of us spoke for a minute. The quiet felt full, not empty. "Can I ask one more thing?" she said finally, her thumb brushing the back of my hand. "Anything," I said. "When this gets hard," she said, "when people talk, or when Jake gets hurt, or when we doubt ourselves, promise me you will not lie to me to make it easier. If you are scared, say it. If you want out, say it. I would rather be hurt by the truth than comforted by something that is not real." I nodded, my chest tight. "I promise," I said, "and I need you to promise the same." She squeezed my hand. "I do," she said. The power came back about 10 minutes later. The lights flicked on with a soft buzz. We both glanced up, then laughed when our eyes met again. We blew out the candle, but we did not let go of each other's hand right away. Eventually, I stood up. "I should go," I said. "Give you your night back before Jake calls and asks why his favorite mechanic is hogging his mother." She rolled her eyes, but there was affection in it. "Text me when you get home," she said, "so I know you did not trip over a raccoon in the dark." "I will," I said. At the door, I paused. She stood there, close but not too close, the hallway light soft on her face. "This is real, right?" I asked, needing to hear it one more time. "Yes," she said, "it is real." On impulse, I leaned in and kissed her cheek. It was quick, soft, but it sent heat rushing up my neck. When I pulled back, her eyes were wide, then her lips curled into a slow smile. "Good night, Tyler," she said. "Good night, Madison," I answered. Outside, the town was lit up again. Porch lights glowed. TVs flickered in windows. As I walked to my car, I felt like I was moving through the same old streets, but my life did not feel small anymore. It did not feel simple either. There would be hard talks. There would be people who would not understand. There would be moments when I would question everything. But as I drove home, my phone buzzed with a message. "Madison, thank you for seeing me." I smiled, my chest full and aching at the same time. "Me, thank you for seeing me first." I did not know exactly what would happen next, but for the first time since I had come back to this town, I felt something I had not felt in a long time. Not just comfort, not just routine, hope.